excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. Excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. Excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. We're excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. We're excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event. Excited to welcome you to our event, Building Business Resilience, How Collective Leadership Will Reverse Nature Loss. Here are some useful tips to help you before we get going. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Help button. Click this to do a quick check and make sure your device can run today's webcast. You can ask questions and answer polls during the event by clicking the Slido tab below. If at any point you have a technical issue, click the Technical Support tab below, where you can ask for help. We hope you enjoy today's event.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Paul Pullman, and it's my pleasure to be one of your hosts for today.
And I'm Tian Wei. It's a pleasure to welcome you all. 非常高兴能够和大家在这里见面，欢迎各位参加我们今天的活动。大家可以通过我们屏幕下方的中文来了解更多的内容。Thank you for joining us. I'm pleased to see in the pre-event poll that quite a number of you, in fact, have said the business has already had an extremely important role to protect, restore, and also sustainably use our natural resources. So that's why we are here.
Absolutely, Wei. And this is actually the first business leadership event to discuss nature, rethinking the building back better. So this is a major kickoff of a drumbeat that hopefully will only get stronger in the years to come. How to emerge stronger from this. And more importantly, over 3,700 people online.
Wow, isn't that a grand event? We hope you are comfortable, of course, and that you can see and hear us. Before we get going, let's just look at this video that sets the context for today's event.
This is a moment for the world. How we emerge from this crisis will only be a defining moment if defining choices are made. Over half the world's GDP is at moderate or severe risk due to nature loss. Thriving businesses rely on nature. Nature is at a tipping point. We're living beyond the planet's limits. Businesses must act now and send a powerful signal that nature is a priority. It's up to us. We need to rebuild healthy societies and resilient economies. Will you join us and help reverse nature loss in this decade? Nature is everyone's business. Is it yours?
Well, indeed, we're at a tipping point for nature, and collective action and high ambition is needed. I think the COVID crisis has shown that nature, health, inequality, and the economy are all closely related. But most importantly, people are at the center. We can't have healthy people on an unhealthy planet. And the most important thing is that we build greater resilience again to be ready for future shocks.
Certainly, that is absolutely essential. Looking after nature is an essential way to build resilience. But as you said, we are losing the very foundation we all rely on. Before we started the event, we asked you what you thought the main drivers for nature loss were, and you can see your answers on the screen right now. We have seen the word cloud, that you can see some of the biggest things that people are looking at. Climate change, of course, land use and sea change, nature resources use and direct exploitation of organisms, and also pollution, invasive alien species. And these are very important, some of the 5 main direct drivers the divers rather of nature laws, and also this is compiled together by an organization which is called the IPBES, an important discovery, these 5 areas. So we know what the drivers of nature laws are, and we also know now business has a critical role to play. So what can we learn from the current COVID-19 crisis in the context? We have a fantastic lineup today, ladies and gentlemen, rock star speakers for you online from all over the world, and we'd like to thank them all for so much help and support for joining us today. Let's kick things off. In our first session, we are going to reflect upon the current crisis and what we can learn from it. And then we will talk about business leadership.
If you close and you go to the calendar entry.
And to begin our first session, we wanted to ask all of you who have joined us today to answer a question too. So please go to the poll, which is under the Slido tab, which you could see below the webcast screen, and answer the question: should we make as many lifestyle changes to stop nature loss, climate change, and inequality as we are making to stop COVID-19? So while our participants are answering the questions, we could already see quite some answers coming out. Wow, strongly agree. That is approaching 85%. We also have agree coming up, 17 for the moment, likely to reach about 17, 18. Okay, so that's probably the number we are seeing right here. Strongly agree, 80% almost, and agree accounting for almost 16 to 17%. So the answer is quite clear.
Well, we clearly have
Paul?
an intelligent audience. Absolutely. We have a window of opportunity right now to act whilst governments are looking at putting the next rounds of stimulus packages in place. These crises have had a profound impact all around the world, that I'm now interested to hear what people online are thinking. So what are the results of the poll, Wei?
Earlier we see part of it. Let's see the final result. If we could have it on the screen, that would be
There
wonderful. 73% strongly agree. Agree accounting for 24%, disagree 2%, strongly disagree 0. So obviously, strongly agree, agree accounting together, that will be about 97% altogether. Absolutely the big majority there. So it's good to see that our people coming to our event today, as you said, Paul, they're extremely smart and intelligent to identify the priorities.
We have the right audience.
Yes, we do. And just before we introduce the panel, I want to let you know that there is an open box in the poll below for you to say what you, our audience, think we must learn from COVID to build back better. And we will have a look at your reflections after our speakers have shared their views. We wanted to ask our 4 panelists the same question we've asked you. What must we learn from COVID to build back better? First, it's my honor to introduce the first speaker for today, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So good to see you on the screen.
Thank you.
And I'll give the floor to you, literally. Ngozi?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be with you all this morning. When I think about this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, there are 3 things that come to me. The interconnectedness of the world is inescapable. The way that this virus has spread to 216 countries and territories in such a short time and impacted developed and developing countries alike is remarkable. The other is the vulnerability. It's been quite amazing to see how it has exposed how vulnerable we all are. Rich countries whose health systems we're supposed to be strong, we're not able to handle, well, in fact, overwhelmed by the pandemic. And you can imagine what it's like in poorer countries. The other thing is that has been exposed is inequality. We saw how unequal the world is. This pandemic exposed something that already existed, inequality between countries as well as within countries. When we were looking for medical supplies and equipment and PPEs, rich countries were able to outbid the poorer ones. And within countries, we saw that minority populations suffered much more in several countries than others. So some cracks and issues existing have been really exposed by the pandemic. And that leads me to say that everything we must recognize and learn that health, sustainable development, the loss of nature, all are interrelated. And we cannot solve the problems of this world in an isolated fashion. We must learn that all of these things come together and are related. And if, as we build back better, we have to solve these problems together. So that is a big lesson. All of us, whether we are government, business, or private sector, civil society, we have to solve them together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the co-chair of the Global Commission for Economy and Climate Change and the chair of Gavi. You set a great example for all our speakers for observing the time. Thank you so much. And now we have our next speaker already joining us, Mr. Joaquim Levy, who was the Brazil's finance minister and also World Bank's chief financial officer. Joaquim, what we must learn from COVID to build back better, please.
Hello. Well, it's a great start with Ngozi, and I would agree that the COVID has accelerated and made clear very many trends, and is forcing all of us to reassess the values and offering an opportunity to address things like inequality in society, the looming disaster from climate change, and the quality of a company's governance. I will focus a bit, I was asked to, on ESG and what it means at this time. I think first, we all agree that COVID impacts the elderly and the poor more, including developing countries, where the consequences of the possibly long global economic downturn will be harsher. But the good news is that investors are increasingly saying that responsible investment, green, transparent, and inclusive ESG investment ought to be the norm. And ESG is not only about a company's social and governance policies and their impact on climate, biodiversity, and society. It's increasingly about understanding the impact that these changes in climate, social, and labor conditions will have on business. ESG is a two-way street where exposure to physical, social, and transition risks and the ability of companies and governments to manage them will be increasingly priced by markets. And governments do have a role in ensuring that ESG financial products in particular are real and not a wash, and in promoting corporate disclosure on climate exposure and risk management practice. Mark Carney is helping with that. Now, during COVID-19, many companies have supported employees and taking actions, showing social commitments and sound governance. We hope that markets will continue to distinguish and reward these companies. We also realize that many of the poor are in the front line. The recognition of the importance of humble jobs ought to have an impact on pay scales. And through ESG, investors can contribute for that. So let's celebrate that a lot of money is flowing to global sustainable funds, and they are actually performing the market, which is good because many financial analysts are increasingly associating sustainability with innovation and higher productivity. And when there is a commitment to share these productivity gains with all the stakeholders, it indeed puts ESG companies in a strong position. So let's also remain that ESG ought to go beyond national borders, go to poor countries. Let's go work together to have the world we want, where we move together to an economy with net zero carbon emissions. Is an imperative that ESG investment can help to make happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joachim and Ngozi, and good to see you both on the program. The crisis that you both alluded to is well understood, regretfully, and so is the sense of urgency that is needed. Efficiency and international collaboration is what you both alluded to. The crisis affects us all, and we all need to act.
Thank you very much, Paul. As you can see, some great comments are already coming in the Slido. So do share with us some of your own reflections as soon as possible. And now I'd like to invite Ms. Patricia Espinoza, who is here to share with us her reflections. She is the Executive Secretary of UNFCCC. So Patricia, what must we learn from COVID to build back?
Well, first of all, I would say that the overwhelming lesson from COVID-19 is that we must build a cleaner, safer, healthier, more sustainable, more resilient, and more climate-friendly future, period. But that's a lot of more in that sentence. What we had been doing pre-COVID-19 was not taking us there. And we humans have a privileged position on the planet. We have developed the ability to communicate, to cooperate, to build foundations that span generations. And those privileges, we have to understand, come with responsibilities. Namely, we need to apply the knowledge that we have learned from past experiences, including and especially global emergencies, in an ongoing effort to our strengthening our overall foundation. And in this case, we can draw lessons from this latest crisis to apply to humanity's greatest long-term challenge, which is climate change. 3 lessons. First, COVID-19 has opened our eyes to what really means a global crisis. It is very difficult to visualize such a crisis beforehand. But now we have seen it, and now we have been warned. And now we must truly acknowledge that climate change, which is already impacting millions around the world, can become a much bigger tragedy for humankind. Second, it has underlined the value of multilateralism, of inclusive multilateralism. What does that mean? It means that everyone, not only governments, everyone in all societies need to be part of the solution. And the final lesson, in my view, is that this crisis has demonstrated that society can, when there is the will, come together and address a global challenge with really bold responses, with things that had not been imagined before. So we have the capacity, we have the instruments, and I certainly hope that we have the will of all people to overcome this crisis and build resilience, not only to address this crisis, but to build a better, safer, healthier future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Great point. At a global crisis with such scale, real inclusive multilateral collaboration is needed, and we are seeing bold ideas and actions, and this is time to act. Thank you for your calling. And thank you. Later, we're going to go back to some of the opinions voiced by our viewers and also participants. So now let's go to the head of the biodiversity. Earlier, we already have the head of the climate, and now let's go to the head of the biodiversity. It is my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Maruma Murema. I hope I pronounced your name right, Elizabeth, who is the Executive Secretary of UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Elizabeth, please.
Thank you very much, and greetings to all.
just to recall, 2020 was supposed to be a super year, a perfect storm of political momentum and ambition that would have shaped the next decade and how we interact with the planet through a series of high-level discussions, international agreements, celebration that would have made a mark for years to come. Unfortunately, it turned out that 2020 brought us yet another challenge, and a single message now, more than ever before, our relationship with nature needs to change, and the realization that our task ahead is even more critical than we had imagined before. We need to seize this opportunity and come together, policymakers, business community, consumers, society in general, to make a true, lasting, and impactful change that can help the transition to a sustainable pathway and halt biodiversity loss. The next decade will be critical to ignite and propel that transition, and only through innovation and collaboration and a mission we will succeed in making the decade for action. The business community is a very important piece of the puzzle. Business rely on nature for resources like minerals, metals, recreation, advertisement, and the like. Companies that have embraced the transition to green models can prosper and even gain competitive advantage while showing the vision and leadership. Environmental, social, governance company, public disclosure from over 400 companies have revealed the positive gains, especially during this period of COVID crisis. From the last year's OECD report, signaled the global organic food and beverage market expected to grow by 16% per year to reach US dollars 320 billion by 2022. There's also evidence that scaling secular resource efficient models of production can reduce the amount of new resources that are needed to potentially unlock about US dollars 2.4 trillion in business opportunities by 2030. Other novelties driving private sector leadership and biodiversity are also seen in the Lion's Share Fund, an innovative approach where companies have committed to contribute 0.5% of media spent linked to advertisements containing animal images. This taps into a market that spends over 500 billion annually. Consumers, employers, CEOs are all more invested than ever before in having an impact story behind their brands and products. And nothing more can be more impactful than nature thriving. In the coming months, governments will come together to craft and adopt a new post-2020 global biodiversity framework that will guide the transformation we need to safeguard a healthy of our planet and future. If anything, the current crisis has brought us closer. It has taught us we can be connected even if miles apart. We can work and collaborate from our homes while maintaining productivity and taking care of our loved ones. It has shown us that transformative change is possible and highlighted the importance of building resilience to a multitude of interconnected shocks across the systems. It has led a vulnerable bear and shed light on how we are at the center of the deep transformation. Time is now to act. We need to find common solutions to our problems by reimagining business models, redesigning value chains, addressing current practices flaws, and reaching the right level of ambition to reverse the nature loss by crafting innovative and bold solutions that are compatible with our planetary boundaries while securing our livelihood, our prosperity, and our health. We need to channel collective leadership to reverse nature loss and create inclusive nature development pathways. Your voices must be part of the journey, must inspire the deep transformation we need so promptly to shift the course and recalibrate our values and actions to attain life in harmony with nature. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for this passionate plea, and congratulations once more on your appointment by the UN Secretary General to be the Executive Secretary of the CBD. You have the most important job in the world right now, and we're all behind you. Patricia and Elizabeth both have talked about the need to transform and come out better, the need to build more resilience. And as Ngozi and Joachim mentioned, it is such a challenge that we have in front of us that it requires the best of all of us. It requires cooperation. But next to cooperation, it also requires the private sector, as we have heard, to integrate nature into all of its decision making. Sure, we need to set targets and be clear about that so that we know what needs to be achieved. Sure, we need to have governments implement the right policies so that the right signals are given for business to invest. We need to look at subsidies and incentive systems to get the right measures. But above all, we need the leadership of the business community, and that's why we're going to focus on next. Wei, over to you.
Well, Paul, as we have already told our audience that there's opportunity to put in their insights as well, we have got quite a few of them. If I could use this time smartly to read them up very quickly. Some from Adrian Gager, I hope I pronounced the name right. That is a wonderful comment. Our consumption habit can be changed, and we must actually be more happy while consuming less. My mom used to tell me that. I'll remember that advice. This is a great one, I guess, for generations. And there's another one. A crisis needs to be treated as such, with urgency, efficiency, and international collaboration. It will affect all of us, and we need to act soon. I'm sure, Paul, you have some of those as well. Reflections.
Oh, absolutely. Consumption keeps coming back. How do we define success? And what is very clear is narrowly defining GDP like we currently are doing might lead us to the wrong actions, and we see more and more of that. The more and more businesses asking for valuing natural and social capital as well as financial capital will be able to take the right decisions. And I'm glad to see that many of our audiences are pushing for this. GDP definitions are actually being changed right now, and I'm happy to say that the country where you're broadcasting from, China, is already very actively involved in changing their definition of success and not narrowly define it. So if we all do it, we might be on a better path. Business once more.
Together, I remember that's the word. That's the word, together, as I heard it once and again from our earlier four speakers. So I guess that spirit will be with us for today's event. So we've looked at the context. And now let's go to hear from our business leaders. Hello, you are watching our event live online. In the pre-event poll, we have a huge percent of you saying that business has an extremely important role to protect, restore, and sustainably use our natural resources. And of course, it is easier said than done. Some might wonder. Just before we hear from some of our CEOs joining us today, you will also see that there is a Q&A option where you can upvote questions you like best. So please go ahead and ask questions, and we will select a few after all four CEOs have shared their views.
Well, we certainly look forward to the talk with the CEOs. I've been in contact with many of the CEOs over the last few weeks, and it's not an easy environment out there. But I'm happy to say that many of them are stepping up to the plate and showing leadership in this environment. And one of those companies showing leadership is obviously AXA. We have Thomas here, who is the CEO of AXA. And thanks for joining us, Thomas. Thomas, you've taken the leadership in many different areas. You're the largest integrated ESG investor. You're also one of the initiators of the Zero Asset Alliance. I had the pleasure to talk to some of your people not long ago. So the word is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Hello to everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this very important conference, because biodiversity is probably one of the most undermined topics. Species are disappearing at a fast rate, and the implicit contribution of biodiversity for our well-being, for problems with human, are, to my mind, not yet well recognized. You might ask yourself, as an insurer, what do we have to do with biodiversity? Because we are not a big polluter, we are certainly not a big consumer of natural resources, but we are a big investor. And what we certainly see is that nature and more sustainable, more inclusive investments, as it was mentioned earlier, are extremely important and do add to the well-being of society. And therefore, identifying opportunities in the investment space to really move on biodiversity, help to find solutions from the investment side, is our absolute core desire and mission. Biodiversity for us is a natural extension of the climate strategy, Paul, that you already hinted at. We started very early by joining the Act for Nature. Last year in Metz at the G7, we launched the task force together with the WWF to create more disclosure around biodiversity, very similar to the TCFD that we have helped on in the climate arena. And we also launched a third investment impact fund around biodiversity protection, being also the owner of 250 forests. Those topics are very important. As a next step, we really want to go more in marine stewardship, so reviewing fishing activities and how we insure them, making sure that we can insure mangroves. But also today, I do announce a 3-year partnership with WW France to tackle biodiversity risks. Going further, we need a common framework and we need a broader coalition. Broader coalition means that it needs to go beyond the financial actors, and common framework really needs to mean that we have biodiversity targets that are broadly accepted. And certainly, I do believe that the COP15 next year in Kunming is really the opportunity and the place to bring together business models and to align them with nature. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas. Highly appreciated. And I'm going directly to Shinta, who is calling us actually from the car in Indonesia. I know Shinta already for many years, and she's one of these formidable leaders in that part of the world. She was the chairperson of the Global Investors for Sustainable Development. She's active in the Chamber of Commerce there, and with her company, Syntesa Group, covering a wide range of businesses. She's a leader in Indonesia. Sinta, the word is yours.
Thank you, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share about how we, Syntesa Group Indonesia, present ourselves to be part of the solution for sustainable nature. I think for more than 20 years, Syntesa Group, as a strategic investment company, has committed to promote our vision to be a sustainable, excellent company in all our 4 pillars: property, energy, industrial, and consumer products. We are aware that more than 2/3 of our global carbon emission come from business choices. Therefore, it is up to us as business leader to build sustainable business and environment. For that reason, in Syntesa, we believe sustainability is far beyond just an attribute for company to build a good image, but as the key of business resilience. With adverse impacts of COVID-19 on the business environment, we are in a way to strengthen our resilience towards green recovery. That is why we are striving to implement our SDG roadmap called Syntesa for Earth. Syntesa for Earth. Through this program, we are focusing on building sustainability within our product, supply chain, and operation. In achieving this, we want to build sustainable business ecosystem through our business portfolio in clean and renewable energy, which are steam, gas power plant, and geothermal. We make sure to implement clean technology and strengthen in-house environment capabilities within our energy portfolios to comply with certification from the Ministry of Environment. Furthermore, we have also redesigned our business operation and supply chain through the lens of circular economic principle, from waste management with reduce, reuse, remanufactured being implemented. Looking beyond this agenda, we are in progress of developing ecotourism business in special tourism economic zone in North Sulawesi. By integrating our business innovation, wildlife conservation, green employment, and environmental sustainability, we can deliver utmost integrated strategy between business and environment as the key element to build back better. In addition, we believe sustainability is not a solo journey. In fact, it is about working together within the company. We are doing this in Indonesia through platform by establishing the Indonesian Business Council for Sustainable Development. Together with government partners, companies, academia, and civil society organization, we start discussion, building capacity, and joint actions to promote sustainable sourcing, efficient use of resources, tackling food loss and waste, handling plastic and hazardous waste, protecting forests and biodiversity. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Shinta, for the efforts you've been making with your company and also the partnership you've been trying to build throughout the years. It really helps really to get views from around the world to see various aspects of the issue and also to see this leadership too. And I would like to also remind all our viewers and everyone who's participating to send through any questions you have for our CEOs, and we'll come to some of them later. Paul?
Well, thank you, Wei. And Roberto, my guest, joining us from Brazil, I guess, where he's leading one of the best and most admired companies in the world, the biggest B Corp, which is Natura, a company that is now representing many products all over the world. You've heard of Avon, you've heard of The Body Shop. My wife is a favorite buyer of Aesop, and the company has already for 20 years been an active protector of the Amazons. Roberto, the word is yours.
Thank you, Paul, and Wei and Paul, thanks for inviting me to this important conversation and conference. We at Natura & Co. connect people all over the world who always believe in doing business different. Our brands, Avon, Natura, Body Shop, and Paul's wife's favorite, Aesop, share the conviction that business can and should be a force for good, committed to generating positive economic, social, and environmental impact. Today, in fact, we are launching our 2030 vision, Commitment to Life. Let me illustrate a couple of key points. We are taking the climate crisis seriously, and we are committed to become net zero carbon emission, actually 20 years ahead of the UN commitment. And because we are present in Brazil and Latin America, we will not rest until we have zero deforestation in the Amazon. Second, we clearly hear the call for change in society. We can and do more toward inclusion and diversity. We are committing ourselves to ensure gender equality by 2023 and to ensure 30% of inclusion of underrepresented groups, considering the fabric of each geography in which we operate. And very importantly, track how fast we are improving living conditions for those who are part of our network. Third, we are being bold also with our commitment to full circularity of our packaging. But what we really want is to partner with others to find innovative, regenerative solutions. In this way, we put back in nature more than we take away. Now, we believe that in order to really promote systematic change, we needed to engage with society as a whole, including consumers, governments, and civil society. which is why this Business for Nature's call to action is so important. We need business to join this effort, collaborating and committing ourselves as leaders and as companies. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robert. Well, thank you, Roberto, and most importantly, thank you what you're doing with your company and the enormous impact that you have through your actions. We are going now to China, where you will be pleased about that. We have one of your most respected business people, Mr. Guochang, and I apologize if I pronounce it wrongly, but I've been practicing with Wei for the last few hours. And he is a chairman of a group which is Fossum International, which is one of the largest privately owned conglomerates that we have in China, with 3 large business activities around health, around finance, and around entertainment. Please, Mr. Guochang, go ahead and share with us what you are doing for nature.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Fosun, rooted in China, is an MNC with a mission to make every single family around the world to enjoy a happy life through our 3 main business sectors: health, happiness, and wealth. This can't be achieved without our innovation-driven and global strategy. We not only adapt to the local business landscapes, but also, more importantly, we embrace innovation and contribute to the local communities. The COVID-19 outbreaks since early this year has posed a huge challenge to the world, to governments, companies, individuals, and also to the nature. As we know, the body has a natural built-in stress response to threatening situations called fight or flight response. During the reaction, a chain of rapid reaction inside the body help mobilize the body's resources to deal with threats or dangers. This is a lesson we learn from the nature. Thus, in the face of the pandemic, as we are facing today, as an enterprise, we should all think about what kind of reaction we should take, how we can work together as a human community to respond fast, better, and more responsible to our friends and families, to local communities, and to the nature. Taking Fosun as an example, our employees and teams around the world were quickly mobilized since the early outbreaks in China. As our initial response to the epidemic in China, including utilizing global supply chain and our expertise in healthcare to address the shortage of PPEs, ventilators in China and other affected countries, Fosun gradually formed its own wartime mechanism to support local communities, not only in China, but also later on in Europe, in Latin America, and in Africa. There's still a long way to go before we fully eradicate the COVID-19. Before that, we should stay alert while be a bit more optimistic. While wearing face masks in the public might become new normal, we can still pursue a more sustainable, more fashionable approach to masking. We at Fosun have launched a new line of business to provide end-to-end solution with degradable raw materials and nanotechnology to offer reusable, sustainable face masks. And in cooperation with the fashion brands like Lanvin, Wolford, St. John, Wolf's, and Lidl. This pandemic has put everyone to the test. I strongly believe that defeating the pandemic and moving forward will involve and strive with a strong belief in globalization, in innovation, and because of this, we will share a better future, the future we want. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much again for the leadership that you're showing in that part of the world. And it's really impressive to see the level of business leadership involvement from the panel that we just discussed. But there are many more businesses out there that are also taking action, as you well know. In fact, we have over 400 companies that have made commitments on nature already. And over 1,000 companies are actually taking active action on nature. And as you heard it, it makes perfect economic sense as well. But we know it's not enough. The direction might be right, but the scale and speed of which we are moving is clearly not sufficient. We need now everybody to increase their ambitions, and we need to have everybody step up to action. So we'll talk about that with the declaration that we're issuing today. A very, very welcome political ambition is being called for collectively by the business community to ensure that governments are starting to take this seriously and integrate this in all of the policies that they're doing. There are so many collective voices out there already around the green recovery, and many of you online are probably part of that. We've seen the Race to Zero, for example, that is led by the high-level climate champions for climate action, which actually has over 990 businesses and 38 of the biggest investors signed up, Thomas undoubtedly being one of them. Now, these are fantastic efforts that we can be proud about. But even though we know that these are happening, we do need to get nature-based solutions higher on the agenda and give it more priority than it gets today. So today, especially today, we are launching the Business for Nature's Call to Action for companies to be part of a broader business voice calling for collective action and for more political ambition on nature. So I strongly encourage actually all of the companies that are listening to this broadcast today to sign up to this call for action. You can see it here on the screen, and you can sign up before July 31st. And as you can see, it says a few very simple things. The first one is that healthy societies, resilient economies, and thriving businesses rely on nature. That governments must adopt policies now to reverse nature loss in this decade. The emphasis on this decade. And together, let's protect, restore, and sustainably use our natural resources. What a powerful declaration, and it certainly needs all of your support. What I'm doing now, for the interest of time, I'm going to directly turn to two of my friends and highly experienced business leaders, which I respect enormously, to see why they have joined this call to action and what they are doing to ensure that we protect, restore, and sustainably use our natural resources. I start with Ellen. Ellen Job is the CEO of Unilever, a wonderful company I won't say more about, but I'm happy that Ellen is leading it and leading it successfully. Ellen, the word is yours.
Thank you, Paul, and Xie Tianwei. Well, this declaration, this important call to action, is based on the best science we have. We're relying on science to get us through this pandemic, and we must listen to the science around climate change and nature loss as well. Governments, I think, need to see business taking action to reverse nature loss and address the related scourge of inequality. And so today, I'm giving this call to action my backing and Unilever's backing. In fact, just this morning, Unilever announced a new set of integrated environmental commitments to fight the climate crisis, to protect and regenerate nature, and here they are. First, Unilever's brands are going to invest 1 billion euros in a new climate and nature fund. Over the next 10 years, we'll put 1 billion euros into high impact projects and initiatives such as landscape restoration, carbon sequestration, wildlife protection, so that we will help protect and restore the health of the planet. Second, we will have net zero emissions from all our products by 2039, from sourcing to sale. And this is in addition to our existing science-based climate targets for 2030. To deliver this, we will preferentially prioritize partnerships with those suppliers who have themselves their own science-based targets, and we will also communicate the carbon footprint of every product we sell. Thirdly, we will achieve a deforestation-free supply chain by 2023, just 3 years' time. We're raising the bar on our previous commitments, but we're also giving ourselves a little bit more time to achieve it. Fourthly, we're introducing a regenerative agriculture code for all our suppliers, and we're going to empower and equip farmers and smallholders to regenerate their farm environment. This is going to include things like securing legal land rights, access to finance, and so on. And fifth and finally, we will aim for biodegradable product formulations, 100%, and implement water stewardship programs in 100 locations by 2030. These are our 5 commitments and actions to address the current planetary emergency. Collective action is going to be critical, and in that spirit, I'm delighted to now hand over to my friend and colleague, one of the most progressive business leaders around on the nature agenda. At Unilever, we're proud to work under his leadership on the One Planet Business for Biodiversity Coalition. And I am, of course, talking about Emmanuel Faber of Danone. Emmanuel, over to you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for your kind words. I will be very short, my friends, here, because I won't explain everything that Danone is trying to do to address these critical topics. There have been many announcements in the recent past, and we're trying to structure our governance now to make sure that it's fully embedded even in the articles of association of the company. My very short time with you is about requesting your help all around this call, and I'm happy that we are like 3,500 people attending this meeting for that. To share 2 things. One is a conviction. The strong belief is that, of course, nature is our business. We need to stop working against it and make sure to recognize that nature works for us, actually. And therefore, we are on a journey where we recognize that between humans and the wildlife biodiversity that we're all trying to protect, there's a big missing link, which is the way we deal with soils, the land use. How can we recreate a missing link of biodiversity in what we cultivate in agriculture, basically, and essentially also for food as a byproduct of agriculture? So this is under these auspices of seeing biodiversity in agriculture as a critical for the resilience of our business models, and a big request from consumers and civil society now that we have assembled, as Alan was just referring to, about 20 of the largest food and textile and basically agricultural goods companies around the world in a coalition called One Planet for Business Biodiversity in the UN, launched at the General Assembly last autumn, that works on 3 pillars. One is on soil health, regenerative agriculture, sinking carbon. The second is restoring the cultivated and domesticated biodiversity in the fields, pushing and supporting labs to make sure that we re-expand the number of crops and varieties on which we rely. And third, going for innovative ways, jurisdiction-based deforestation policies. So the call is for all my business peers around this webinar to join us, because $2,500 billion is a lot, but it's not enough to create a tipping point. So please join us if, as me, you believe your business is at risk because of biodiversity loss. And to all others, please help us businesses to shift to nature-based solutions by making sure that there is the appropriate regulatory framework that allows this to do it at scale. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel and Alan, for your comments, your inspiration, leadership, and support. And now let's hear from more CEOs from around the world.
Nature is the art of business. Without a healthy nature, there will be no healthy food. Nature is L'Occitan's business. Biodiversity and the work with local communities is at the core of our business model.
Nature is Unilever's business because we can't have a healthy business if it's on an unhealthy planet.
We strive to incorporate a new era of circular economic principles, from waste management, ecotourism to clean and renewable energy.
Our long-term value and profitability depend directly on the health of ecosystems and biodiversity.
We responsibly source the world's best natural ingredients.
We are working to ensure sustainable relationship between natural capital and business activities.
No investment decision is made without considering its impact in light of the 5 main pressures on biodiversity.
Preserve water sources is essential for the sustainability of our company.
我们也投资了很多环保方面的项目，积极助力城市的环保项目改造。我们希望把每一座城市都变成生态之城、绿色之城。
At Danone, we have pledged that by 25, we will entirely rely on regenerative agriculture.
Our environmental policy has specific guidelines regarding biodiversity.
并荣获 FSC 3人应经标准，同时在秘鲁、非洲、巴西等地科学地进行木材贸易。
We've been working in the Amazon forest for 20 years, but now it's time to do even more.
Together, we can create a sustainable future.
All of these leaders have signed up to our call to action, which is healthy societies, resilient economies, and thriving businesses rely on nature. Governments must adopt policies now to reverse nature loss in this decade. Together, let's protect, restore, and sustainably use our natural resources. Nature is
Everyone's business.
Well, it is very clear that the more companies we can get to sign up, the more we can go to governments and adopt the policies that are needed to drive this more sustainable and equitable future and protect our nature whilst doing this. We can encourage you to sign up before July 11th. Remember, it makes business sense. Don't forget to sign up. Way over to you.
Okay, Paul. So now we are opening our final poll, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you before we close the event today. Will you encourage your company and companies in your network to support this call to action by July 31st? As Paul just mentioned, this includes encouraging your friends and family who work in any business or of any size, in any sector or geography, whether they should be adding their voice to this global effort to reverse the nature loss in this decade. Well, we hope we're going to see more results coming in. Yes, 94%, 95%. Wow, this is
well
really
done.
Impressive. We are having an absolutely encouraging crowd here. Oh my God, inspiration and leadership we are seeing here and the massive support. Paul, we are really happy, I can tell.
We did our job and they listened.
Absolutely. Done. All these speakers earlier in the previous sessions have played their leadership and certainly demonstrate to us. And now they are being the inspirations for all our viewers and participants. And we got much more than we expected. A wonderful result. Thank you so much. Back to you, Paul.
All I can say is our children will be grateful. Please support the other events as well. We have in September, the heads of states will discuss the nature crisis at the UN Biodiversity Summit. In 2021, we have the countries coming together to agree a new framework globally on biodiversity. And in January 2021, we have the IUCN in Marseille. They need your support. They need your voices. You need to advocate. This is the only guaranteed way to implement the right policies to move everybody at scale. Both Wei and myself, thank you for what you are doing as leaders of the world, as leaders of your companies, but more importantly, what you are doing for the planet and for future generations to come. It makes business sense, as we've heard today. It is a tough challenge. It requires global cooperation, but you've seen some leading companies that are doing this and doing this successfully. Don't miss the boat.
So together, let's protect, restore, and sustainable use our natural resources. That's all we have for today's event. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the fantastic speakers earlier in our program. And also, thank you for your participation. See you, Paul. Thank you for doing this with me together. The pleasure is mine. And I'll see all of you in the future events. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.